Gerald stole my diary. He showed it off in the dormitory, bragging. Michelle isn't that hard to get. Took me just 3 months. Aren't you guys curious about what she writes every day? Let's take a look together. His roommates crowded around noisily. Bro, do you even need to ask? She must be confessing her love to you in that diary. They opened the first page. To get a little closer to him, I agreed to date Gerald. They opened the second page. Why does he have to be Gerald's roommate of all people? The dorm fell silent. Chapter 01. When Gerald came to find me, his expression was awful. I knew it immediately. He had already seen that ridiculous diary of mine. Heh. Serves you right for stealing it. Hope it pisses you off. I sneered coldly in my heart, but my face still wore a gentle, innocent smile. Gerald, why are you here? Gerald stared at me. After a few seconds, he said in a low voice, Michelle, you're already my girlfriend now. I want to introduce you to my roommates. I instantly put on a delighted expression, pretending not to see how dark his face already was. Really? I asked timidly. I can finally meet your friends. Gerald ground his teeth. Then let's have dinner together tonight. I seemed to recall something and hesitated. But I have to go to my part-time job later. Gerald immediately took out his phone. He transferred me $200,000. Ask for leave tonight, he said. Just say you have something to do. I immediately sent it back and refused sternly. How could I take your money? He sent it again. I sent it back again. He sent it again. Finally, after Gerald added a note saying voluntary gift and dominantly snatched my phone away, this farce came to an end. Glancing at the balance in my e-wallet with satisfaction, I put on a deeply moved expression. Gerald, you're really such a good person. Chapter 02. I study at an elite private academy. And I am the poorest scholarship student in the entire school. Gerald, on the other hand, is one of the wealthiest rich heirs on campus. His entire dorm is even jokingly called the Academy's F4, complete with their own fan club. Gerald only worries about whether to go to London or Paris today, whether to go diving or skiing tomorrow. I have far more to think about. I need to figure out how to secure the highest possible scholarship, how many part-time jobs I need this month, and how to maintain my persona as a pure, fragile, innocent girl. So it's easier to play the victim when needed, while also keeping good relationships with classmates. And avoiding being bullied and isolated like in cliché idol dramas. On top of that, I have to calculate how much food delivery coupons can be stacked, which stores give free birthday gifts, and how big the discounts are on different supermarket membership days. This is a poor person's day, tedious and exhausting. Originally, Gerald and I had nothing to do with each other. We lived in completely different worlds. Until inexplicable rumors started spreading around the academy. They said I was hard to get, that some XXX had chased me for half a year and still failed. They also said I wrote in my diary every day, and that it recorded many of my secrets. I was completely confused. First of all, who the hell is XXX? Secondly, I had no idea anyone was chasing me at all. I bolt the moment class ends every day. When people talk to me, I usually just smile and nod without really listening. As for the diary I supposedly write every day, that's actually my expense ledger. I've had the habit of handwriting my accounts since I was a kid. But because of this, Gerald developed a strong interest in me. He was not only curious about my diary, he even made a bet with his roommates on how many months it would take to win me over. I rejected him again and again. He remained persistent, clearly enjoying himself. Finally, one time, Gerald came to the restaurant where I worked part-time. He paid someone to deliberately make things difficult for me, then jumped out to play the hero and rescue the damsel. That was when I snapped. After the manager finished yelling at me, I returned to the dining hall covered in soup and sauces. Under Gerald's gaze, I clenched my teeth tightly, forced out a grateful smile, and said softly and gently, "Thank you, Gerald. So you don't want to be a decent human being, huh? Then you can be my ATM instead." Chapter 03. The restaurant Gerald took me to was a Western-style restaurant. When we arrived, his 3 roommates were already there. Even though they tried hard to hide it, I could still feel all their gazes landing on me. People are like that. Even if they weren't interested in me at all. The moment they learned that I might secretly have a crush on one of them, and that I even agreed to date Gerald because of that person, their male curiosity and competitive instinct instantly kicked in. That sense of self-satisfaction was impossible to conceal. A bunch of trash who enjoyed snooping through other people's diaries. While cursing these three trust fund kids, just as boring as Gerald himself, until they were utterly shredded in my mind, my expression on the surface remained unchanged. I even made a very subtle movement to break free from Gerald's hand. A full-on dramatic move of seeing the person you secretly like. Gerald felt it immediately. His face darkened again. He tightened his grip on my hand, and introduced me in a gentle voice, "Michelle, these are my roommates. You should have seen them around campus before." I nodded, pressed my lips together, and didn't say another word. Based on my understanding of Gerald, there was no way he would confront me directly. First, he couldn't bring himself to admit that he had stolen and read my diary. Second, he must feel that I had played him, and he was desperate to find out who the him in my diary really was. Third, and this was still about his competitive instinct. From the moment he realized I liked one of his roommates, I went from a disposable bet to a prize he absolutely had to win. Heh. Men. Rich or poor, they're all the same. Everything they're thinking is written all over their faces, easy to crack in a second. As we walked to the table, Gerald kept staring at me, trying to guess which of his roommates I liked based on who I looked at. But how could I possibly give him an answer? I didn't look at a single one of them. Instead, I looked at him innocently. "Gerald, why aren't you sitting down yet?" Gerald was completely speechless. Chapter 04. The atmosphere at the table was extremely tense. Manuel was the first to speak. "Gerald, we haven't ordered yet. Why don't you check what Michelle, your girlfriend, likes to eat?" He had a pair of puppy dog eyes, sharp features, and dimples when he smiled. He looked cheerful and sunny. I understood him. If my family owned 10 courtyard mansions in City A, it would be hard for me not to be cheerful too. He pushed a menu toward me. A long list of French words made my eyes spin. I hadn't seen a single dish before. I could only understand the prices. One dish cost an entire month of my salary. Just looking at it made me start resenting the rich. I shook my head and smiled. "I've never eaten any of these. You can just order." Manuel took the menu back. "All right then. Gerald, you decide. You must know what she likes." Gerald didn't actually know what I liked. He only knew that I wasn't picky. But I knew. I had put in the effort to find out. Everything was written clearly in the fan club's compiled information. Gerald liked mangoes. But Manuel was allergic to mangoes. So I frowned slightly and asked the waiter softly, "There's no mango in these dishes, right?" The table fell silent again. Gerald was looking at me. Manuel was also looking at me. And I asked in complete confusion, "What's wrong?" "I can't eat mango, that's why I asked." After saying that, before Gerald could speak, I turned the tables on him. "Gerald, didn't you know?" Under my gaze, Gerald froze. He couldn't say he didn't know. After all, his current persona was that of a deeply affectionate young master who had finally won me over. But saying he did know would be too fake. Because I made it all up. I could eat mango just fine. I had even drunk a mango smoothie that morning. Manuel reacted quickly and smoothed things over. What a coincidence. I'm also allergic to mango. Thanks to the senior from the drama club for her selfless guidance. Thanks to the fact that I had played a few minor roles for money before. I quietly lowered my gaze, then after a moment looked up, just in time to meet his eyes, my gaze falling straight into his, gentle and soft. After he finished speaking, I said softly, "Yeah. What a coincidence." In reality, my eyes were sweeping back and forth among the three people across from me. Lower my eyes, lift them to look at Manuel. Lower my eyes, lift them to look at Mason. Lower my eyes, lift them to look at Skyler. No one was left out. Whoever I looked at, my eyes were full of tenderness. 3 parts loneliness, 3 parts admiration, 2 parts melancholy, 2 parts restraint. My eyes were about to cramp. It was easily the finest acting performance of my entire life. Manuel froze as well. He looked a little at a loss. His originally lazy, reclined posture straightened up. Then he shot Gerald a subtle glance. His eyes were filled with disapproval. Chapter 05. Gerald was sitting next to me. From his angle, he couldn't appreciate my acting at all. But he could see my physical performance. For example, right now. Before the food was even served, I very naturally pushed the hot tea in front of me away. His movement paused, and he looked at me. I looked back at him. Shouldn't the president take his medicine before eating? Mason is the student council president of our academy. At a student-run elite academy like Ellis, he's basically a campus tyrant. Mason wears a pair of silver-rimmed glasses. His features are upright and handsome, and he looks gentle and refined. His manners are impeccable, yet in reality, he keeps everyone at arm's length. In short, he's putting on an act. But I understand him. If I were the sole heir of a global top 100 corporation, I'd put on an even better act than he does. Gerald asked me, "What do you mean by taking medicine?" I glanced at Mason and met his eyes. This time, Gerald was clearly getting heated. His jaw tightened. I said, "I participated in the student council selection before, but..." I stopped halfway, showing a slightly melancholic expression, leaving plenty of room for them to fill in the blanks themselves. A few seconds later, I steadied my emotions, lifted my face, and returned to a bright smile. So I know the president has stomach problems. In fact, there was absolutely no causal relationship. I really did participate in the student council selection, and the reason I didn't get in was simply because I was eliminated in the first round of interviews. I had applied for the position of president's secretary, the chief aide to the campus tyrant. At the time, I took it extremely seriously. I even suspended my 2 part-time jobs for it. You could say I was determined to get that position. First, once I became the president's secretary, I'd be the second most powerful person in the academy. I could walk all over Ellis. Second, from then on, I'd only need to flatter Mason alone. No matter who tried to order me around, I could just say the president is looking for me and use his authority to intimidate others. Third, I'm usually so busy that I've even helped weed the campus lawns just to secure scholarships. But if I worked for the student council, wouldn't those comprehensive evaluation bonus points come effortlessly? Fourth, and most importantly, maybe little by little, I could consolidate support, directly seize power, or simply outlast Mason until he stepped down. Then I'd become the next campus tyrant. Who wouldn't be tempted by such wicked thoughts? I was tempted. I even researched Mason's background. He had stomach problems. That classic ailment all domineering CEOs seem to have. Something to remember, useful later when flattering him. But after I ranked first in the written test, I was eliminated in the very first interview. Because I couldn't compete with the girl who had invested $10 million into the student council. She was Mason's fan club's #1 fan, throwing money around purely out of her infatuation with him. I tossed and turned all night, my mind filled with thoughts like, if I got plastic surgery to look like Mason, would someone give me $10 million too? By the time dawn came, I still couldn't let it go. But Mason definitely knew nothing about any of this. He could never guess the dark ambition I had of overthrowing him. At this moment, he was a little stunned. His light tea-colored eyes fixed on me, his expression turning complicated. After a while, he said, "Thank you." I blurted out, "You don't need to thank me." Gerald froze. His eyes were practically shooting fire as he glared at Mason with an expression that screamed, "So it was you." As for me, I simply lowered my head slightly and said softly again, "You're all Gerald's friends. This is only natural." Then I quietly hooked my little finger around Gerald's little finger. The anger on his face froze instantly. When he turned his head, he found me smiling at him with curved eyes. A completely innocent, guileless smile. Gerald froze again. He turned his head away without saying a word. And he didn't pull his hand away either. Chapter 06. Gerald's last roommate was named Skyler. He had a face that attracted romance effortlessly, handsome to the point of looking like a supermodel. Normally, he looked lazy and a bit unkempt, But somehow, even wearing a plain t-shirt made it look like a runway piece. Because of that, he ranked first on our academy's People You Want to Sleep With list. I don't know who came up with that ranking, but they were a genius. It fixed the bug of our school not having any official popularity charts. At the time, Skyler's fan club and Mason's fan club were battling fiercely. I took 500 yuan from my deskmate without the slightest guilt, flatly refused the class monitor's vote canvassing, and cast my vote for Skyler. My deskmate said Skyler had an easygoing personality and was the most approachable one among the F4. She even showed me his posts on social media. Skyler replied to almost every single comment. But I was only staring at the actual content of that post. Skyler had uploaded a picture saying his investment fund returns this month were pretty good. A long string of zeros made my eyes spin. I counted them one by one: tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 20 million. I imagined it for a moment. If my monthly investment returns were 20 million, I'd definitely be full of love for the world. I wouldn't even be able to think of what problems I could possibly have. But Skyler really did have problems. His father had 4 wives and 3 sons. His mother was the legal wife, yet also the least favored. His father never gave him paternal love, only cold hard money. I felt very sorry about that. Because if he gave me cold hard money, I'd be willing to give him warm overflowing fatherly love. So in the past, when I looked at Skyler, my gaze was always full of kindness. That was until recently, when Gerald started going all out. And I ended up hating their entire dorm. A bunch of beep 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 beeps, all of you can just go to hell. Chapter 07. At the dinner table, Skyler and I barely exchanged a single word. Until I went to the restroom. When I came out, I saw Skyler leaning against the wall, watching me. He must have just splashed his face with water. His bangs were slightly damp, and excess droplets slid down along his prominent brow bone. I avoided his gaze. Skyler. He seemed thoughtful. After a moment, he smiled. Michelle, we're not that unfamiliar with each other, are we? I immediately lowered my head and started acting. My hands were clasped behind my back, fingertips digging in until they turned pale. We had met before. One of my part-time jobs was near the racing club he liked to go to. Every time he finished a few laps, I still hadn't gotten off work. He asked me, "Why haven't I seen you lately?" I was a little surprised. We hadn't spoken more than a few times, yet he still remembered me. I replied vaguely, it wasn't suitable. What other reason could there be for changing jobs? Either the pay wasn't right, or I found a higher paying one. But Skyler clearly imagined something else. His expression turned subtle. He asked again, then before, why was it that every time I left, you were still there? I was confused. Wasn't that obviously because I was still working? I had to clock out, otherwise I would have left long ago. But Skyler stared straight at me. I thought for a few seconds, then looked up at him. My gaze was serious. If, when you were leaving, you saw a light still on, would that make you a little happier? According to the information I'd seen, Skyler was extravagant with money. The place he lived was often brightly lit, lights on all night without ever being turned off. Combining his background, his troubles, and his carefully crafted persona, I boldly inferred that he was afraid of the dark. After all, being afraid of the dark, just like having stomach problems, is a fashionable luxury ailment of the privileged elite. Sure enough, Skyler's hand paused. He looked dazed. But I had already walked past him. Just before leaving, I paused my steps and spoke very softly, "I hope you're happy, Skyler." Chapter 08. After dinner, Gerald walked me back to my dorm. He tested me verbally. "Michelle, my roommates are pretty decent, right?" I nodded, then slightly rose onto my toes and moved closer to Gerald. His words got stuck in his throat. He could only watch as I wrapped my arms around his neck and plucked a leaf from the top of his hair. We were very close. His breathing quickened as he lowered his head, staring at me in a daze. Meanwhile, I calmly closed my fingers around that fallen leaf, lifted my eyes to look at him, and smiled. Gerald's friends are all very nice, but in my heart, Gerald is the best." He didn't say anything for a long while. This young master Gerald, who always looked down on others, had never been in a relationship before. After confessing to me, he hadn't even held my hand once. His entire focus had been on figuring out how to steal my diary. When it came to sneaking around, he was certainly skilled. But when it came to playing the pure love game, how could he possibly compete with me? I was willing to bet Gerald had never seen anything like this before. I added, "I've never eaten such good food before." "You really spent a lot on me, Gerald." Gerald blurted out, "Then what did you usually eat before?" I didn't answer. It seemed like he suddenly remembered something, and his expression turned a little regretful. After all, when Gerald was pursuing me, 8 times out of 10 he'd run into me eating boxed meals. The other 2 times, I was eating convenience store rice balls or bread. Ellis's cafeteria isn't cheap. But I never thought much of it. What's wrong with boxed meals? There are premium ones too. This particular boxed meal place was something I'd painstakingly sifted out. It was good quality, affordable, and filling. The owner not only threw in extra crispy cucumbers and radishes, but since I subscribed monthly, she even gave me stacked discounts. Clearly, Gerald didn't see it that way. He looked a bit irritated. Without saying a word, he lowered his head and started transferring money to me. "You're already my girlfriend," he said. "Don't eat that kind of low-nutrition stuff every day. Take the money. If I'm busy, eat something good yourself. If I'm free, I'll take you out to eat." "What do you mean low-nutrition stuff?" "There are vegetables, meat, and eggs." I silently apologized in my heart to the innocent boxed meal shop owner. On the surface, I skillfully put on the frail, delicate expression reserved for an innocent white flower girl. After refusing a few times, I reluctantly accepted the money. "Actually, as long as I'm eating with you, I'm already very happy," I said. "Even instant noodles would taste amazing." After that, I took a plastic container out of my bag and handed it to him. Inside was a strange mango-based item. It looked like a culinary disaster. "I can't eat mango," I said, "but isn't mango your favorite? I tried making this morning. It doesn't look very good, so I didn't want to give it to you at first. If you don't want it, you can just throw it away." It really didn't look good. It was a failed product made from the leftovers of the homemade mango smoothie I drank that morning. I'd planned to throw it away then forgot. I lifted my sleeve. A section of my wrist was exposed, dotted with scattered red marks that looked very much like an allergic reaction. Earlier at the table, I heard Manuel say that people allergic to mangoes would break out in rashes even from touching the fruit. Inspiration struck immediately, and I rushed to the restroom to draw them on. Gerald's gaze fell on my wrist. He didn't say anything for a long time. Only after I awkwardly tried to hide my hand back inside my sleeve did he let out a low "Then I'll head upstairs now, Gerald," I said. "See you tomorrow." "See you tomorrow," he replied. I went up to the dormitory building and looked down from the 3rd-floor window. Sure enough, Gerald was still standing downstairs like a statue. The statue moved. The statue started eating the culinary disaster I had made. The statue looked like it wanted to throw up but held it in, and still swallowed that huge lump of unidentified substance. 2 minutes later, Gerald sent me a message. "Gerald, thanks, baby. It's really delicious." I really couldn't hold it in anymore and laughed out loud twice. Feeling guilty. Regretting it. Feeling heartache. Starting to think you're a piece of trash. This is just the beginning. Little Gerald, how ridiculous. Chapter 09. I updated my diary. Today, I had dinner with him. When our eyes met at the table, my heart started pounding like a drum in that instant. He is like my moon, hanging high in the sky, pure, gentle, and bright. He is so far from me, yet so close. I only dare to look at him, quietly staying by his side. But what about Gerald? Gerald hasn't done anything wrong. I can't toy with his feelings. Gerald is good. I'm the one who's not. But I've realized that I seem to be feeling something, perhaps I should. The stimulation was enough. It was time to give a little sweetness too. I needed Gerald to think that I was wavering again, that I was being drawn to him, that I was starting to like him, maybe even love him a little. So I copied a bunch of overly sentimental confession poems, then cut them off with a few inexplicable ellipses at the end. I didn't write who I was secretly in love with. I didn't write what exactly I had realized about myself. I didn't write what I might do next either. After all, I hadn't figured out how to make it up yet. But I was extremely satisfied. Because anyone who read this diary would automatically insert themselves into it. The sense of immersion was just too strong, perfectly matching one of the three greatest human illusions: does she like me? I placed this suspense-filled diary in the spot where Gerald could steal it most easily. Sure enough, when it comes to stealing, there's only 0 times, or countless times. Gerald took my diary again. When he returned it the next day, there were dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept all night. I mocked him in my heart for a good while, but on the surface I showed concern. "Gerald, what's wrong? Why do you look so tired?" Gerald said, "It's nothing." After a pause, he added, "How about we go to the hot spring resort my family just opened this weekend?" I put on a slightly troubled expression. "I have to work." Gerald was silent for a few seconds, then started spraying money again. "Just ask for leave. Losing a bit of pay doesn't matter." He was getting more and more practiced at transferring money to me. "You're my girlfriend now. You don't need to work so hard. You could even quit your job, I can support you." My expression didn't change, but I sneered inwardly. "Oh really? Support me? You really think I'm your girlfriend? I'd have to be stupid to believe that. Once Gerald figures out who I'm actually in love with in that diary, he'll dump me without hesitation. Just like how he barged into my life in the first place and turned it upside down. Even gold miners couldn't dig up something this absurd. I cursed him out viciously in my heart while wearing a gentle smile on my face. "I can take leave to spend time with you, but I can't quit my job." "That's different, Gerald." He frowned. "How is it different?" "I want to work hard too, at least so I won't be that unworthy of you." I looked straight into his eyes, serious and sincere. "I want the gap between us to be smaller, even if it's just a little." Gerald met my gaze. After only a few seconds, he seemed flustered and looked away first. His voice was a little hoarse. "Michelle, you're already very good." I thought to myself, how could I not be good? Tell me something I don't know. The two of us, each harboring our own schemes, clung together and acted like a lovey-dovey couple for quite a while. Until my phone rang. I glanced at it. It was Mason. Gerald saw it too. His expression changed instantly. "Who's looking for you?" "The president." I stood up. "I'm heading to the student council." A completely confused Gerald, "The student council? What are you going there for?" "To work," I replied naturally. "The student council recently created a new position. It's for scholarship students. The president invited me to interview, and I already passed." Gerald was speechless. He looked like he'd been stabbed in the back. His face turned green, his chest heaving with anger, looking like he wanted to tear Mason apart with his bare hands. And I had already taken the opportunity to slip away. Chapter 10. When I arrived at the student council, the first thing I did was enter Mason's office and replace the flowers by his window. White roses, their petals still dotted with dew, fresh and beautiful. They were Mason's favorite flowers. The window reflected the figure behind me. He was standing there quietly watching me. I turned around, my face showing just the right amount of fluster. "President." He looked at the roses. The silver-rimmed glasses concealed the emotion in his eyes. After a long moment, he said flatly, "I can't take care of them. They'll wither in just a few days." I was confused. "Bro, are you delivering lines from an idle drama right now?" I thought about it and decided he was probably speaking metaphorically. So I responded in kind. "But the president's window gets the best sunlight. Even if they wither, they're willing to stay here." "Heh. What are you pretending for? Even if these flowers didn't wither, they'd still be replaced with a new bouquet every day. The president's office decor has a special budget, there's even a separate line item for fresh flowers written clearly into the expense report. Mason lowered his gaze to me and suddenly smiled. Is that so, Michelle? His refined, elegant face was bathed in sunlight, carrying an otherworldly, almost ethereal air. You'd never guess he was trying to steal his roommate's girlfriend. And you'd never guess he'd secretly read a girl's diary in the dorm. While slandering him inwardly, I put on a soft smile. Then I'll head to my own office now, President. My office was right next to Mason's, separated by just a frosted glass wall. The day after that dinner, I received an interview invitation from the student council. There was no need to think about it, this was obviously Mason's doing. The new position was called Director of Special Admissions. In reality, its authority was equivalent to the president's secretary, reporting to Mason alone. The interview itself was just a formality. The expressions on the panel of interviewers were filled with gossip. They probably hadn't seen Mason abuse his authority for personal gain very often. I even heard them passionately discussing the relationship between me, Gerald, and Mason. I treated myself as deaf, then happily took up my post, finally becoming the chief aide I had dreamed of. Since I was currently the only member of the special admissions department, all the funding Mason allocated to me, afternoon tea allowances, publicity subsidies, department bonuses, went to me alone. All of it came straight from his personal account. He transferred money to me every day, and I accepted it with a clear conscience. To show my gratitude, I went to his office every day to change the flowers and pour him a cup of hot water. And reminded him to take his medicine if he was sick. No feelings involved, just pure flattery. At the same time, I found out that Mason would soon finish his studies and return home to inherit the family business. When that happened, the throne, the president's position, would be vacant. As the second in command, I had a very good chance of taking over. For that reason, every morning when I woke up, I encouraged myself. Go, Michelle. Maybe your turn is coming very soon. Chapter 11. Mason clearly hadn't told Gerald about this whole series of moves. Because Gerald came knocking. His expression was so cold it looked like it was freezing over as he strode straight toward Mason's office. What do you mean by this? Mason's expression didn't change. Gerald, this isn't a place you should be coming to. Gerald sneered. In this academy, where can't I go? I watched from the side with great interest. Wow, these lines. One pretentious bastard after another. Mason replied calmly and methodically. Michelle ranks third in overall academic performance for the year, and her academic scores are first by a wide margin. With her comprehensive abilities, she is more than qualified to enter the student council. The original interview result was unfair. I merely made a certain compensation on behalf of the student council. You know damn well what you're thinking. Gerald's face darkened abruptly. Back then, his words cut off mid-sentence. Because he saw me. I appeared right on cue, my face full of confusion. Gerald? Why are you here? Gerald lowered his hand. Baby. I just had something to discuss with Mason. It's nothing. You go ahead and do your work. I smiled at him, then placed the stack of documents I'd just finished handling in front of Mason. President, these need your review. Mason flipped through a few pages, looking slightly surprised. The proposal is done very well, but there are still a few issues. We discussed it for half an hour. Gerald stood off to the side with a dark face and watched for half an hour. When Gerald and I finally left together, Mason called out to me. Michelle, thank you for the flowers. He paused. I won't let them wither. I gave a perfunctory smile. The moment I turned around, I saw Gerald so angry his expression was practically twisted, yet he still tried to calm as he asked what Mason meant by that. I told the truth. It just means the president's office changes flowers every day. Today I happened to be the one who helped replace them. Gerald's expression finally eased a little, but soon he turned back to me again, hesitating like he wanted to say something. One look and I knew. That was his male possessiveness acting up again, hoping I'd leave the student council and stay farther away from Mason. As if that were possible. I sneered inwardly, didn't give him a single opening to speak, and instead cheerfully shared all the details of my new job with him. The more he listened, the more unnatural his expression became. Finally, he suddenly asked, "You really like working at the student council?" I curved my eyes into a smile, my tone innocent. "I do." Then I looked at Gerald with a face full of expectation. "You'll support me, right, Gerald?" Gerald was speechless. The words he wanted to say, trying to persuade me to quit, got stuck in his throat. With an expression like he'd just eaten shit, he pinched his nose and let out a muffled Chapter 12. I was extremely busy this week. I only updated my diary with 2 lines. "He is the most outstanding person I have ever met. Everyone else is good too, but like they say, compared to him." A meaningful ellipsis. Simple, easy to understand, yet highly effective provocation. It worked immediately. On Friday, Gerald invited me out on a date that evening. I regretfully turned him down. "Gerald, since I'm going to the hot spring resort with you this weekend, I definitely can't take time off these next few days. I have to work." Gerald, as usual, had nothing to say. Gerald said, "Then I'll drive you to your workplace." I gave him the address. It was Skyler's favorite racing club. Gerald's fists clenched. He ground his teeth. "Why would you be working there?" I looked at him in confusion. "I used to work there already." That's right, Skyler had started making his move too. The small shop next to the racing club, the one I had already quit, offered me an hourly wage dozens of times higher than before and enthusiastically invited me back. Who would ever turn down money? All past incompatibility instantly became irrelevant. I accepted right away. After that, I ran into Skyler every night. Sometimes he came to do a few laps. But even when he wasn't driving, he'd still wander over, pacing back and forth inside the little shop, afraid people wouldn't notice he was hitting on someone. As the girl he was hitting on, I played deaf and dumb. I just clocked in and out on time every day. That alone made him feel like I was waiting for him, like I was leaving a light on for him. Once, he fell asleep on a chair by the window. That day was his birthday. Skyler didn't like celebrating his birthday. Apparently, every year his father would only transfer him money while personally cutting birthday cake with his 2 younger brothers. That day, I accidentally saw the birthday gift his father gave him, a huge bank transfer. Tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. My gaze shifted to Skyler's face, which carried faint self-mockery and loneliness. He didn't even look at the string of zeros I couldn't finish counting. He drank alone, quietly pouring for himself. To prevent myself from making any decisions that would betray my ancestors and the criminal code, I ground my teeth and turned away. When I came back, I found that he had fallen asleep. I draped a blanket over him and waited beside him for him to wake up. At 5 in the morning, he finally did. I was sitting across from him, writing something. In front of him was a small cake-shaped lamp. The shop lights stayed on for him all night. And I waited for him all night too. Skyler looked at me. I looked back at him a little shyly and said softly, "This is for you." He didn't speak. He just stared at the little cake lamp, dazed. But I looked out the window, my tone carrying a sense of release. "It's dawn now. You don't need the light anymore." He suddenly smiled, somewhat helpless yet gentle. When he looked at me, something quietly shattered. He reached out, rubbed my head, and sighed. "Michelle, aren't you silly?" Of course I wasn't silly. That cake lamp cost me $59.9 at a boutique store. But staying up until 5 that day earned me a 6-figure overtime payment, transferred to me by Skyler through the shop owner. Return on investment, 10,000%. I accepted it gladly. I deserved it. Chapter 13. Skyler didn't tell Gerald about this either. He hid it well. From the looks of it, he wanted to take the secret affair route, quietly, gently, and harmlessly stealing his roommate's girlfriend right under his nose. But that plan was ruined. Because Gerald insisted on driving me to work, and I very righteously shoved that location right into his face. And then Gerald completely lost his mind. He dropped me off at the shop where I worked, then stormed straight into the racing club. That night, neither of them came out. I had an informant inside the racing club. She enthusiastically live reported the scene to me, Gerald threw the first punch. Skyler didn't react in time, but he wasn't about to take it lying down. He threw one back. Then the two of them started brawling. The trash talk got dirtier by the second. Are you fucking sick? Stealing my girlfriend? Why don't you just go die? You still dare call her your girlfriend, Gerald? Are you a fucking idiot? Have some shame. Skyler, you're real impressive, why don't you fucking tell her about that? In her eyes, I'm the best. Who the fuck do you think you are? She's already about to fall for me, it's all you shameless bastards seducing her. They both went all out on each other, aiming straight for the face. In the end, both of them were bruised and battered. Neither dared show up in front of me. They collapsed on the ground, panting, still exchanging heartfelt greetings about each other's entire families. I laughed so hard I squatted down right there in the shop. After laughing, I didn't forget to accept the money they had explosively transferred to me in the middle of their chaos and gently asked if they were okay. Gerald, I'm fine. Skyler's driving skills suck and he insisted on driving, ended up hitting his head. I'm taking him to the hospital. I already called a driver, they'll take you home later. Skyler, I'm fine. It's just that Gerald can't drive for shit and still wanted to try, fell over. I have to keep an eye on him. I found a friend to take you home. I almost died laughing again. After being thoroughly cared for by both of them, I didn't get into either of their cars. Instead, I happily scanned a code, rented a little electric scooter, and rode off on my own. Chapter 14. Skyler and Gerald went off to let their faces heal. Manuel finally found his chance to step onto the stage. The two of us were still in the plain unadorned chatting phase. At most, he would occasionally post some photos on his social feed along with captions that were vague and suggestive. At a glance, they were clearly set to visible to me only. I would occasionally like them. More often than not, I wouldn't. Very measured. But Manuel's conscience kicked in. He probably felt that Gerald deceiving the feelings of an innocent young girl like me was simply too despicable. And since he firmly believed that I had a crush on him, he often appeared by my side behind Gerald's back, helping me carry things or treating me to food. But now Gerald was injured. There was no longer any need for him to sneak around. He righteously took on the mission of looking after me on his brother's behalf. This included, but was not limited to, buying me milk tea, saving seats for me, carrying my bag, accompanying me shopping, and giving me gifts every single day. In less than a week, my clothes, shoes, and backpack had all been replaced with a new set, matching Manuel's exactly. Of course, I refused in accordance with my persona. But Manuel would always flash his signature sunny smile and say, I'm Gerald's friend. He asked me to take good care of you. I wonder if Gerald would die of rage if he heard that. Looking at Manuel's sincere watery puppy eyes, I pretended to believe him. At his invitation, I even went to watch his basketball game. During halftime, I brought him water and a towel. He didn't take them with his hands, instead, he obediently lowered his head. I hesitated for a few seconds. After all, even according to my pure innocent white flower persona, wiping his sweat crossed a bit of a boundary. But Manuel just looked at me pitifully and said, Michelle, my arms are sore. Something was off. This felt abnormal, almost like provocation. Out of the corner of my eye, I scanned my surroundings and finally noticed two gazes in the stands that were extremely hard to ignore. I turned my head sharply and found two people wrapped up so tightly their own fathers wouldn't recognize them staring intently in this direction. For a split second, I almost broke character and laughed out loud. Skyler, Manuel, and Gerald were on the same basketball team. Manuel wouldn't have deliberately invited them to watch the game, would he? So calculating. With a sense of appreciation for a fellow schemer, I temporarily set aside my prejudice and wiped his sweat. The other clueless basketball players immediately started chiming in as hype men. Manuel, you and your girlfriend look so well matched. Your girlfriend is so pretty and gentle, man, you've got it good. Hey sis-in-law, thanks for bringing him water, must have been hard on you. Only one boy looked at me uncertainly. Aren't you Gerald's? I didn't even get a chance to speak. Bang! One of the masked figures rushed over. His voice was muffled through the mask, but the rage was unmistakable. "Fuck you, Manuel. Michelle is my fucking girlfriend." The smile on Manuel's face instantly faded. Without another word, he threw a punch right back. Skyler joined the fray as well. The scene descended into total chaos. While shouting "stop fighting" over and over, I stayed far away and enjoyed the show. It wasn't until the tardy arrival of Mason that this whole mess was barely brought under control. Chapter 15. All three of them were hospitalized. But this time, no one knows what kind of agreement they reached. In any case, none of them punched each other in the face. I went to visit them, moving back and forth between 3 single rooms, busy like the owner of a pancake stall. Comfort you first, then comfort you again. What I said to each of them was more or less the same, putting on the act of feelings that began unknowingly and grew uncontrollably yet had to be painfully suppressed. Mason was waiting for me outside the hospital. When I walked out, I couldn't tell what he was thinking. But I knew very well, this guy was the smartest one in Gerald's dorm. He had probably noticed that something was off. But I didn't care. After all, the student council's public evaluation results were already out. I had handled all my work exceptionally well. Given Mason's personality, he wouldn't fire me in a fit of anger. So I smiled at him. "President, let's go." This week, the student council was inspecting Ellis's newly built study abroad estate, and Mason took me with him. This sparked intense dissatisfaction from his secretary. Miss Lopez, the eldest daughter of the Liu family who had poured $10 million into promoting Mason, had disliked me from the moment I joined the student council and constantly tried to trip me up. But I defused every move cleverly, infuriating her to no end. Most recently, she had made a huge scene in the student council, demanding that I be kicked out. But since I reported directly to Mason, she didn't have that authority. Fortunately, although Miss Lopez was a brain-dead fan of Mason, she wasn't completely awful. She never tried to bully me within the academy, nor did she rally her socialite friends to isolate me. At most, she would roll her eyes at me when passing by and throw a couple of sarcastic remarks my way. This time, she forcibly joined the inspection team. Because the estate was built on a mountain and the cable car hadn't been fully completed yet, there was a stretch of mountain road that had to be walked. On the way up, Miss Lopez managed to hold on. On the way down, it started raining, and she flatly refused to walk. Perhaps she was hoping Mason would say a few gentle words. But Mason merely looked at her indifferently and tossed out a single sentence. "Michelle, let's go." Then he walked straight ahead and truly didn't care about her at all. Miss Lopez stared blankly at Mason, the light in her eyes dimming bit by bit. Seeing that I was standing there unmoving, tears welled up in her eyes. "What are you looking at? Laughing at me? Just go already." I squatted down in front of her. Muddy water soaked the hem of my skirt. "I'll carry you." In the end, Miss Lopez climbed onto my back. Although I look like a delicate little white flower girl, I'm actually quite strong. After all, I'd been working part-time since childhood. Afraid of dying suddenly, I made a habit of exercising. My stamina is excellent, I can usually run 3 kilometers with ease. Miss Lopez was very light. I carried her down slowly. This time, she didn't have the energy to sneer at me by my ear. She only sobbed softly. I really was exhausted. If I could have just rested for a bit, even 10 minutes, I could have kept going. Or if he'd just said "you worked hard," I could have walked. But why did he look at me like that, like I was some unforgivable sinner? Sob. I let it go in one ear and out the other, I was afraid of slipping. When she got tired of crying, she stopped. Awkwardly, she said, "Actually, you're pretty capable. You're not a bad person either. And you really are very pretty, only a tiny bit worse than me." This time, I heard her clearly. "Then will you vote for me in the future?" Miss Lopez was stunned. "What?" I said, "Nothing." I accidentally voiced my dark ambition of seizing power. The rise of a new president requires an internal vote. Succession battles have always worked this way. Vote canvassing starts now. Chapter 16. The mountain paths were complicated. I had already come down the mountain when Mason finally descended by another route. It seemed he wasn't completely heartless after all. After walking a few steps, he turned back and went up to look for us. I had just set Miss Lopez down when I turned around and saw him holding an umbrella looking at me with a very complicated expression. Miss Lopez left. All that remained was a light flimsy check. I didn't take it. I simply gave her a gentle soft smile and said sincerely, "I'll still need you in the future. I'll need your vote." Miss Lopez's ears turned red. She stomped her foot and left. Mason walked to my side. "Michelle." I waited for him to continue. I waited for quite a while, but there was nothing more. All I heard was him letting out a soft sigh. "If you want that apartment, I can help you." The smile on my face disappeared. I turned and stared straight at him. Betting with Gerald, I could let that go. I could treat it as him seeing it as a social maneuver, humoring an immature roommate. Reading my diary, I could let that go too. I could tell myself he wasn't the mastermind, just someone satisfying his curiosity with a glance. But investigating me? Low class. Absolutely low class. I was furious. I couldn't even be bothered to keep up appearances anymore and pointed at his nose about to curse him out. But Mason grabbed my hand and pulled me into a tight embrace. Mud and water splashed onto the hems of his clean pant legs. His voice was very soft. "Michelle, about everything in the past. I'm sorry. Break up with Gerald and be my girlfriend." My answer was concise, just one word. "Get lost." Mason wasn't angry at all. He even chuckled twice. "Then let me stay by your side," he said. "If you still want to play with them, I'll help you." "Okay?" I was stunned. Mason was ready to stab 3 people in the dorm in the back all at once, truly, a legendary king of betrayal. I regained my composure. "President, I don't understand what you're talking about." He took off his silver-rimmed glasses. Those light tea-colored eyes were completely exposed before me, carrying emotions so intense they made one tremble. He said, word by word, "I'm saying, play with me. I'm willing to be used by you." Chapter 17. On the Academy's forum, a post quietly went viral. "What should I do if my roommate is totally unworthy of his girlfriend?" 1L, original poster as the title says. "My roommate's motives for being with his girlfriend are impure. He doesn't deserve her at all." 2L's comment had a question mark added. 3L's comment had a question mark added. 4L's comment had a question mark added. 5L's comment had a question mark added. "Excuse me, what exactly is the point of this post?" 5L continued, "If you wanted to stand up for justice, you'd just expose yourself directly. Being all sneaky like this, clearly you're trying to steal someone else's girlfriend." 6L, original poster, "It's like this, my roommate only went after his girlfriend in the first place because of a bet. She's too soft-hearted and got deceived, which is why she agreed to be with him. How can I gently remind her about this without hurting her?" 7L, crap. I think I've figured out who this is. 8L, bro upstairs, decode it for us. 9L, but this doesn't quite match what I know. I think that couple is pretty sweet, and the guy clearly likes the girl. 10L, original poster, "Sweet in what way? This is a scam. That poor girlfriend, she's so pitiful. I must rescue her from this sea of suffering." 11L, already calling her my girlfriend. Not even pretending anymore. 12L, "Are you sick or something?" 13L, "Don't think I don't know who you are. You itching for another beating?" 14L, "What's going on upstairs? Did the people involved show up?" 15L, original poster, "I think the best way to avoid." 15L, original poster. "I think the best way to avoid hurting her is to give her an even more perfect boyfriend. That way her emotional wounds can be healed." 16L. The original poster is already so immersed in his own world that he no longer knows what reality is. 17L. The perfect boyfriend you're talking about isn't yourself, is it? 18L, original poster. From an objective standpoint, yes, it's me. Also replying to 12L and 13L, whether you can beat me or not, you know the answer yourselves. 19L. I think I know who it is too. 20L. Who is it already? I'm so anxious I'm rolling around on my bed. 21L. Here's a decode. The girl is extremely pretty, school belle level. Good grades, good personality, very gentle, emotionally stable, just keeps a bit of distance from everyone, which I get. Goddesses are like that. The guy, he got into a fight recently. 22L. Yeah, I know now too. 23L. When she got together with that guy, I was shocked as well. 24L, original poster. Right. You also think her boyfriend is completely unworthy of her, don't you? 25L's comment had a question mark added. 26L. Why does the original poster only ever see what he wants to see? 27L. That's a skill in itself. 28L. Do you really think you're some kind of saint? Anyone with eyes can see what you're really after. 29L, original poster. Heh. 30L. I know too. The girl's family situation isn't very good, right? 31L. I used to be her middle school classmate. Her parents divorced and remarried very early on. They didn't care about her and didn't even give her living expenses. She was so young back then but already doing part-time work to support herself. Our class even organized a donation, but she refused. I heard she was raised by her maternal grandparents. They left her an apartment, but she was too young to have inheritance rights, so her father and mother sold it. This floor has been deleted. 32L. Holy shit. 33L, original poster. Stop talking about her real life. The post has been cleaned up. Any more of this and accounts will get banned. 34L. So the urgent matter now is how to be a mistress, right? 35L. Insider info, the original poster can't even qualify to be the mistress, there's already someone else in line. 36L. I'm willing. 37L's comment had a question mark added. 38L, original poster. Pomelo leaf image. 39L. Pomelo leaf image. 40L. You bunch of trash spreading rumors here. Like girlfriend and I are doing great. 41L. Oh. 42L. She's playing you like a dog. 43L, original poster. Fine. I'm willing to be her dog. 44L. Get lost. A bunch of beasts. 45L. I've been lurking for so long, let me give some advice. Since this whole thing started with a bet, the original poster and the roommate should sincerely apologize to the girl. Be like oxen and horses and see if she's willing to forgive you. 46L. By the way, apart from this, the original poster hasn't done anything even worse, right? 47L to 49L fell into collective silence. 50L. What does this collective silence mean? 51L. You're done for. 52L. Ha 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 ha, I think I've figured out what guilty thing they did. Then you totally deserve it. Hashtag chapter 18. I think it's time. He and I originally belonged to two different worlds. I should break up with Gerald and stop holding him back. The hot spring trip with Gerald was postponed again and again, and finally, the date was set. That very day, I added 3 more lines to my diary. This time, Gerald really didn't sneak a look. He saw it by accident while I was writing. The whole day he seemed distracted, his expression so grim it was frightening. When I asked him what was wrong, he suddenly looked up and gazed at me quietly. There was even a trace of pleading in his eyes. I pretended not to understand, cheerfully got into the business van headed for the hot spring resort and, the moment the door opened, all familiar faces. The entire dorm room was there. Every single one. Manuel blinked at me. Michelle, good afternoon. As he spoke, he squeezed over beside me and pulled out snacks. These are all things you like. Pick whatever you want. Mason made way for me, but as we passed each other, his fingers brushed against mine as if by accident. Skyler didn't give way at all. Instead, he took off my coat for me. Cold. Then he shot a sideways glance at Gerald, speaking with obvious sarcasm. Really don't know how some people manage to be boyfriends. Gerald's face was dark, but he didn't drive them away. He just bumped Skyler and Manuel aside with his shoulder, grabbed my hand, and got me onto the bus. Yesterday, I'd done something big. I hadn't slept all night. As soon as I sat down, I felt sleepy, leaning against the seat, half dozing. Someone reached out and gently settled me against his shoulder. I heard Gerald's voice, suppressed and heavy with emotion, sounding listless and hoarse. "Baby, as long as you don't leave me, it doesn't matter who you like or who you go on dates with." I was speechless. "What nonsense are you mumbling?" "I'm exhausted. I slept very well. When I woke up, I felt refreshed and clear-headed. Even when Gerald kept holding my hand, I didn't pull away. And I also didn't pull away from the other hand Skyler had quietly slipped into mine beneath the seat. Smack. That hand was suddenly slapped. Just hearing it made it sound painful. Skyler and I turned to look back. Manuel was playing games, Mason was looking out the window. Both of them looked utterly innocent. It was honestly hilarious. I finally couldn't hold back and laughed. Skyler's expression immediately softened. "You like that sound? I'll have them hit a few more times." Mason stopped looking at the scenery and turned to stare at me quietly. The emotion in his eyes was enough to make one's skin crawl. Manuel leaned in as well, looking like he wanted to squat in front of me and wag his tail. "Michelle, I missed you so much." Gerald, standing off to the side, finally snapped. "Do you all take me for a dead man?" Chapter 19. The rooms at the hot spring resort all had private baths. I refused to go out and soaked in the hot spring right there in my room. While soaking, I held my freshly issued property ownership certificate and stared at it. So happy. From now on, I had a home of my own. I wouldn't have to push myself forward so urgently anymore, refusing to leave myself even a moment to rest. As for love, I could give myself plenty of love. I didn't need it from anyone else. My home was big and beautiful. It looked a little different from how it had been when my grandparents were still around, but if they were here, they would definitely like it. I had already secured my position in the student union. Once Mason left, I would inherit everything he had, and then work hard to win that exchange study spot. I did the math. Based on my grades plus my comprehensive evaluation score, it shouldn't be too difficult. I'd also saved up enough money for studying abroad. Once I started working, I could raise a cat. I'd already thought of the name. It wouldn't be the same as the kitten my parents abandoned. It wouldn't be called Red Bean. It would be called Glutinous Rice. I couldn't protect Red Bean back then, but in the future, I could protect Glutinous Rice. Yay. Life really felt full of hope. Thinking about all this, I couldn't sit still anymore. I took out my English test papers and started working on them. Completely immersed in IELTS, unable to pull myself out. After finishing one full set, I looked up and saw my diary on the table. I didn't actually have the habit of keeping a diary. I only liked keeping accounts. After thinking for a moment, I wrote one last line in it. "Won't be updating anymore. The bet and the peeking incident are hereby written off," laughing face. It should be written off, right? Anyway, they all gave things willingly. Even if it can't be, it has to be. Chapter 20. I leaned against the window, waiting for sunrise. My phone kept vibrating. The whole dorm room of good brothers had been messaging me all night. After thinking about it, I replied to them one by one. To Gerald, "I knew about that a long time ago. Let's break up." To Mason, "I'm very busy. Whether we play or not can wait until later." To Manuel, "You're a good person. Thank you for the gift." To Skyler, "I really never loved you, but I wish you happiness every day." The sun rose. I left the diary lying open on the table. I slung my backpack over my shoulders and walked out of the hotel. The hot spring resort had complete facilities and there were even little electric scooters nearby. The auntie from the boxed meal shop messaged me. "Michelle, today's dishes include your favorite braised pork ribs." I got on the scooter, fastened my helmet, and replied. "Great. Thank you, auntie. Let's renew for another month." Facing the direction of the rising sun, the wind roared past my ears. Ahead was the path I had chosen for myself. Behind me, it seemed like someone was calling my name. But I didn't turn around, nor did I bother to figure out who it was. The road ahead is long and bright. No need to look back.